Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back for part 2 of Paths to Sustainability in Daily Life. This is December, so I've got a little Christmas stuff on there. It's also COVID season, so I had my little mask on. Martin, who's a fantastic videographer, is socially distanced from me, so I can put that aside. So, this month we're going to talk about how to address the carbon footprint in your home. First, here's Santa Claus. It's the season of Santa Claus, and he used to deliver his presents on that bike up until 1905. In 1904, he learned about the Wright brothers' flight at Kitty Hawk, and he wrote a letter and said, "Hey, come up and teach my reindeer how to fly." And so Orville sent Wilbur. And there's the bike. Now what you don't see is he's got a sign on his chest. "Please save my workshop floor from melting. It was 20 foot deep, thick, and now it's only 10 foot thick. My elves and all my tooling investments are at risk. Thank you, Santa Claus." You notice there's a little bit of chauvinism in there. He didn't say anything about saving Mrs. Claus, but we got to forgive him. He was a well-intentioned dude. Okay, so with him put away for the time being, personal climate responsibility. Many people have talked about the relevance of doing rather than just speaking. Nelson Mandela, you can never have an impact on the world if you have not changed yourself. Eleanor Roosevelt, one's philosophy is not best reflected in words, it is best reflected in the choices we make, which are our responsibility. Eldridge Cleaver in the 60s, you have to be part of the solution, else you are part of the problem. Mohandas Gandhi, also known as Mahatma Gandhi, be the change you wish to see in the world. Paul Hawken, I really love this. Do what needs to be done. Don't stop to see if it's impossible until you're done. And then I like to say, there's no greater civil right than a right to a livable planet. And in the words of a poem by David White, start close in. Do not do the second step. The third step, start with the first step. And I say, the first step is stop being the problem. If urgency of climate is not now clear to you, please watch Noam Chomsky's recent YouTube on the subject of climate. And then proceed after that to stop all of your combustion. I'm going to say stop combustion because that's what gives you greenhouse gases. Okay, review of last month. We learned to calculate our operational carbon footprint from food, water, sewer, transport, housing. We also discussed some ways to reduce it in all areas except your home. And you went away with assignments, and we'll talk about those afterwards. So, quick review. Grow stuff. Alternative transportation. You can choose to use a big old oil-burning vehicle to go hunting, or you can do it like Mr. Bennett did in 1896 on the western slopes in Colorado. Worked perfectly. Transportation, we talked a little bit about shared rides. I like this. I was driving behind that wagon in India, and I said, damn, that looks good. I got to take a picture. Also, we talked about embodied carbon, embodied energy, embodied carbon. If you recycle, like this 1887 bike, writing it is cycling recycled cycles to cut the embodied carbon footprint of a new bike. Okay, so to reduce the carbon footprint, operational footprint in your home, and I put in parenthetically, and work, you need to reduce the energy loss and usage and capture renewable energy. As far as the first 2 points under the reduce, get rid of unnecessary buildings, whatever that means, and then get rid of unnecessary appliances, simplify, and then reduce thermal loss, then capture. I just want to say most of the talk is going to be on reducing the thermal loss with seal and insulating and controlling radiational heat transfer in and out of the house. So unnecessary buildings. I have a museum in my house, so my work is at home. And it's a gallery as well as a museum. Lots of funny old bikes, lots of funny old pictures of old bikes. I also, for appliances, I got rid of the gas clothes dryer by having in this added space a passive solar walk-in clothes dryer. Now, there are tiers of energy activity. Last week, you learned to calculate your carbon footprint. That's tier 0. Calculating didn't do anything to cut your carbon footprint. Tier 0.5, still not doing anything, is an energy audit. There are a lot of people that'll do an energy audit. Some of them will do a real good job and you'll learn a lot from them. Some just go through the forms. Make sure you get a competent energy auditor and that they explain what they came up with. Now, tier 1. There's tier 1, 2, and 3. And tier 1 is easy, you can do it yourself, or contractible as a standard thing. So, changing your light bulbs to LEDs if you haven't yet. Attic, seal and insulate. Last week in the questions, first question you gave me was, what is the most important thing to do to a house? And I said, attic. Next is lighter roof color. Whenever you're going to do a new roof anyway because of hail. Most of us get our roofs done because of hail. Next, sun tunnels for daylighting. That can be done at the same time you do a new roof. And then upgrade the furnace and water heater. Whenever their time comes, when you do them, get the next generation, which is heat pump, running off electricity. Then upgrade your windows to R10. We'll talk a lot about windows and what that means. Or R8. By the way, Energy Star is only R3. So if it's got the Energy Star label, in spite of all the guys selling them to you, they say, oh, it's Energy Star. Well, Energy Star was set a long time ago. You want to be much better than Energy Star. These R8 and R10, they're Energy Star too, but they're the advanced placement Energy Star instead of the A- guy in the middle of the class. And then storm windows and doors for air buffer, and then renewables like PV. All of those are contractible. Tier 2 is more aggressive. Wrap your outer walls in insulating foam or your inner walls. You can do it either way. You have to worry about moisture, and you don't want to have impermeable membranes, but you can do it either way. And then convert to an air-based mini-split heat pump or a ground or geo heat pump. And then the most aggressive is the building footprint, and you can add airlocks and make them just a single airlock to give you a buffer. So again, those are the easy ones. So sealing, insulating, and radiation control. Sealing is to reduce convective loss. Insulating is to reduce conductive loss. And radiation block to control the solar heat gain and black body loss of heat. Your body radiates out a window at a different frequency than the sun comes in. So there's coatings on the glass that can make it be a one-way stop or the other way or both. Now, insulating values of materials per inch. This is for conduction. The red ones, these are typical wall and ceiling fills. Notice that poured concrete takes 12 inches to be R1. By the way, snow is R1 in 1 inch. Wow, 12 inches of concrete equals snow. Wood chips is 1. Now, aerated concrete is 1, where it takes 12 inches. This is only 1 inch. Putting air in stops the conductive heat transfer. Another thing to notice, most of the framing is softwoods. Notice it's 1.4 per inch, whereas hardwoods are 0.7. So a fir or redwood or pine is twice as insulating as hardwood. That's why framing is softwoods plus. Softwoods are cheaper. It's interesting to note, thinsulate or a down in a jacket is variably 1.6 to 2. And then I'll just say all of the various foam panels are in the 4 to 7 range, up to 8. Aerogel, which is puff silica or puff sand, you can get 10, but it's hard to control and contain. It wants to go all over. And then vacuum panels. These are not used hardly at all. In Germany, they made some 12, 15 years ago, and they're fantastic, but they're not cheap. And as soon as you try to nail a picture up on the wall, no vacuum, and then they're back with poured concrete. Okay, attics and ceilings. This is the first thing you talked about, asking me a question last time. Here's a typical truss structure, very typical. There's other roof structures. And infrared cameras. This one is a high quality. This goes on to your cell phone, and this just gives you 1 pixel, just like when the nurse takes a temperature on your forehead. But the 1 pixel, if you move it around, it gives you a constructed mental picture. Now, this is a ceiling, and you can see there's right along the top plate of the wall, and then where the truss supports come up, a lot of cold is coming down on a winter's day. And you go up in the attic and you crawl around and you blow stuff in. And this finished job is as high as shoulder length there. And so it's about R100, except over at the very edges. But before you add insulation to an attic, you stop, which is for conductive losses, you stop and seal all the seams to stop convective loss. That's leaks. So you seal every place that the wallboard's coming up a wall and the wallboard's on the ceiling. You see the wooden top plate. You seal all of those with a foam. That's a 40-year or longer lasting foam. So this is an old style truss, but there are new style truss. What you notice here, a lot more at the edge and longer runs for heat to sneak out. You'll still get a little difference in your infrared, but it'll be much better. Now, ridge, the very top of your attic. You let the attic breathe out if you have vents up there. There's lots of ways of venting an attic, but if you let it go out from sun at the tippy top, you get the best flow. And it provides room for somebody like Adam here from Bestway. And he's done jobs for me and my family and friends and neighbors and a lot of people in CRES. You can go beyond R100 and you can get it all the way filled up. Now, a roof can be done without a truss, but just with a vault, which is your rafters as 2x6, 2x8, 2x10 at an angle. You notice on a cool day, where the wood is letting a little more heat leak. Now we're going to talk about walls. What are walls? Well, parts of the building perimeter or building envelope that have holes. Some standard holes and some non-standard holes. So doors, windows, and vents for ventilation are standard holes. And non-standard are electrical outlets, unless you go around and seal behind the plug, and cracks here and there, and gaps between doors and frames, and between windows and frames. So, we want to seal, we want to insulate, and we want to smart ventilate. Opening a window ventilates. We want to do it better than that because you lose the heat that you had put in, or the cool in the summer that you've put in. We want to do it above ground, outside and inside, below ground, outside and or inside on each of these. So here you're seeing infrared on energy loss. You've seen this one before. It's best to do this when you have a big temperature differential because then you see how much is going through. So at least 20 and up to 60 degrees different. A real cold day is a good time to use an infrared camera. Here you see a corner, an outside corner. It's all wood and not much insulation. Also around a window. So house envelope walls, they can be frame, masonry, a structurally insulated panel, SIP panel, which are kind of nice and more expensive, or it can be a hybrid of frame with rigid insulation panels on, or a hybrid of brick with rigid insulation panels. And the insulating values apply for the walls just like the ceilings. Same thing. So let's take a core section of a wall, and you get this core sample. And if there's no insulation, it's going to be R2 to R3. That's a low R value. If you have a fiberglass bat properly installed, it's R9 in a 2x4 wall. If you then tube fill with cellulose and press it in by doing a hole outside, you can get up to R14, so you can buy R5 addition. Now, you see on a wall the thermal bridging of where the 2x4s are, and that's colder, that's warmer than that is. And you can wrap with insulation, and that's insulation like this, which is polyiso. And you can add more layers of that, and then put a layer that has a screw surface and put your finish on that. And when you put your finish on, well, you can do it inside and outside. So you can be really obsessive compulsive like I am. You could also spray. Now, this seals real well. It is done commercially, but dangerous to apply, and there have been whole neighborhoods that it was applied, and later there were toxic emissions. So if you're going to go that way, it has to be well planned and well controlled. Now, we're going to look, there's a view from above at the top of my house, and you see the walls that I played with. And I'm going to take off my jacket because I'm getting warm. Seem to have a habit of doing that. And we're going to start with the dining room wall on the inside, then we'll do the outside of dining room and kitchen. So here you see 3 or 4 layers that are 1.5 inch thick of this polyisocyanate foam, and boxing first around with redwood onto the outlet and the heat duct, and then laying this up in layers, and then foaming to seal everything all around everywhere. And then after you get, there's 4 layers of 1.5, then a layer that has the screw surface, and then when you're done, and this is right where that wall section and outlet and the heat duct, you get a redwood wall. And this is redwood that is decking material that has, I've routed and made it a shiplap so it smoothly laps. And if you get redwood that's deck stuff that is cull, C-U-L-L, you get it for either 75 or 80% off at Lowe's, and you can make it be straight. You can clean up with a hand planer, you can route the edge, and it's great for a great discount because people don't want to put crooked boards down. And then when you put it up, you screw the bottom, screw the top, attach a block, a wedge, shove it over, and it's straight. And it stays straight when you screw it. Okay, so this is that wall with the inside, that much insulation. Then I did the outside, and we're going to see that happen. Okay, here, that's garage, this is house. Cut right up through there. I'm not going to cover up, I'm not going to lift all of that. So I cut and then did borders with 2x6 redwood, and then borders around windows, and then filled in. And so there's a stack of material, and I happen to get that at a place that's called Extra Building Materials in Denver on the north side, just outside of the city limits. Tax rate's only 5% out there. And this is stuff that the cut was slightly off spec or something, so it's greatly discounted. And you have some paper tapers But anyway, and you build it all out, and you get that, and then you put up your Tyvek or whatever material you want as a drain level and vapor barrier. Or vapor goes through, it's permeable to vapor, but not water. And then all the siding that was on, I'd taken down, caulked all the holes, painted it 3 times with the top exterior paint, Valspar paint from Lowe's, and put it back up. So it's as good as new or better than new. Okay, so we've done that and that. I'm going to show this. Those are similar. But this is between the garage and the kitchen. And basically, I put up 6 inches of polyiso with 6 inches width of plywood after boxing around the door with 2x8 redwood and around the light switch and the outlet. Now, the basement. You can do this from the outside and the inside if you have access to the inside. And it takes a tarp, a shovel, a spade, and a yardstick. The yardstick's up here. Tarp goes down just so you don't mess up your lawn. And so there's the yardstick, spade. Spade kind of cuts, this kind of lifts, and you dump, and you measure until you're down. I did 4 feet. This is 4 inches thick. 4 inches gives you about R28 add to what was R1 concrete. So that's changing the basement quite a bit. Now inside, quite often builders have done fiberglass with a plastic barrier. If you did an infrared on this, you'd see every place that the little nails were. It's cold as can be, but this is standard for a builder. Now, one thing is, at the very top of that wall, there's an area called a rim joist. These are floor joists, and then a rim joist. And at that rim joist, the builder just shoved a little bit of fiberglass in. And when he shoved the fiberglass in, he didn't really caulk to seal everything first. If there were plumbing lines going out for faucets, or if there was a gas line coming in, or all kinds of things, a wiring going out to your circuit breaker box, they didn't. So this fiberglass is very porous. Air goes right through it. And so when you take these out, which are about an R8 or 9, you're going to see outside in a lot of places. So you want to caulk all of that first. And then you want to cut pieces of the same polyiso and fit it in, and then foam with great stuff around the edge. I did 1 layer and then another layer, each 3 inches to get 6 inches. And at R7, that's R42, and it's all sealed. Really tightens up a house at the rim joist. Okay, another place it's a little bit of an oddball, wherever you have a bedroom sticking out, the builder probably didn't do anything. And so you do 1 pilot hole, and you see, and the first one I didn't see this, but I saw that there's nothing up there, so I did all of it. And this is a heating duct coming to the master bedroom. And it's 1/4 inch plywood away from a -10-degree night. In other words, you don't get warm air into that bedroom. The furnace warmed it up, and as it passes through there, it's cold. So you blow cellulose in. That's about the easiest thing. And then you put a wood plug. You can get wood plugs that'll plug it up. Okay, windows. Holes in the house for view, for daylight, for ventilation, and for sanity. I mean, sanity is a good reason. And they can be in walls, ceilings, and in floors. Hey, why not? So, a multitude of window types. You got frames, glazing units, coatings on the glass, direction of exposure, whether it's north, south, east, or west, makes a difference on how you select your glass, and layered with storm windows potentially. So of the frame types, this will rot. These two are cold. That will, on a hot day, deform, and this does not. It doesn't deform, doesn't rot, and it doesn't. It's not terribly cold if its frame is done in a way that has insulation inside. The other good thing about fiberglass, there's something called the coefficient of linear expansion, and vinyl has a different coefficient of linear expansion than glass. So on a hot day, the glass wants to expand a little bit. The vinyl is different. That puts forces in that may break the seal in your double or triple or quad glazed window, and then you get a foggy area. Fiberglass is glass, and glass is glass, and so the two have the same coefficient of linear expansion, which means you have less problem with that. So, now insulating value of windows. Okay, a single glaze, that means one piece of glass, the stuff that was in the houses in the 60s and 50s and 40s, 1960s and 50s, 1860s, 50s and 40s too, by the way. About R1. Now, what is the R value and U value? They rate windows by U value, which is the reciprocal of R value. So if you take the U value, divide by 1, you get the R value of 1. And so a thermal paint, 2 layers of glass, no special gases, no coatings, you get about a R2, which is a U value around 0.5. To be Energy Star, it's going to be about R3 or more, or a U value around 0.33, 0.30. And that gets you Energy Star, which was set by the U.S. government a long, long time ago. And windows have got much better. And the old ones that have either a coating or an argon gas will give you an Energy Star. But you can get much better than that. A triple glazed with appropriate fillings will be R5, which is a U value of 0.2. And if you get a quad glaze made right up here in Boulder County in Superior, you can get R8 or better. So U value down to 0.125. This for the glass unit and the frame. And the frame is always worse than the glazing unit. Okay, so we talked about those things. Krypton is the best gas. Why is it the best gas? Well, if you have air in there between these 2 layers, air, when it's cold on this side and hot on that side, air will get cold, drop down, then it'll come up with the heat, and it'll go around. So it's transmitting heat between the 2 layers. Argon's a little bit heavier. It'll go slower. It won't transmit as much. Krypton is still heavier, so it goes slower, so it doesn't carry that around as much. Okay, now this is a fenestration label. A fenestration label is by the National Fenestration Rating Council. It's about doors and windows, how much heat loses or gains in the doors and windows. And so they give you the U value, so this is about a half, so it comes out about 2, and here's, it comes out actually 2.12. It also tells you the solar heat gain coefficient, which is different. The U value is heat that you're going to lose going out, and solar heat gain factor is heat you're going to gain from the sun. And depending on what coatings you put on these, you can block the spectrum of the one and let the other go, or block the spectrum of the other and let the one go. And then visual transmittance. So did it dim the view? And 0.66 is a good view. It's not dimmed very much. But this is the thermal pain of the 1980s. Now this is Energy Star. What have they done? They've gotten one coating of E180 on one of the pieces of glass, and they have argon gas. And that gets them down to a 0.30. That is minimally Energy Star. And the solar heat gain is a little bit down from a 0.6. We're going to just see. Now this, 0.27. So we're up to R of 3.7. And this also cut the solar heat gain a lot. So this is not what you want. on a south side that you want to be passive gain on a passive house. But it's good for, reasonably good for what you lose. Now this, we're down, hey, this is R5, 5.3. And this still gives you 4.1. This is great on a passive solar house that you want to get it in the winter, but you don't want to lose it in the winter. And it still gives you vis that doesn't look very darkened. They also sometimes throw in a condensation factor, how much you'll get around the edges of cold. Now, I talked about windows having frames and then the glazing unit. This is from Alpin, right up in Superior, and it's got, this is the center of glass performance, a U factor 0.08. That says, for all except the 2 side inches of the glass, it's an R12.5. Wow, that's better than the houses of the 80s, 90s, even with fiberglass bed and a wood frame wall. And it has a solar heat gain of 0.46. This is fantastic for you want to get that low sun in the winter coming in, and you don't want the heat going out, the spectrum of body. You don't want to get near it and feel how cold it's just sucking out of you. Now, Alpin has their most recent low thing. They get down to 0.1 for the whole window, including the frame. And they also make it a little bit dark. So you're down to 0.3 on the vis. Okay, windows can be in walls. They can be in ceilings. We call it sun tunnel or skylight. Sun tunnels have diffusers that spread it, which is far more effective than just a column of light like a skylight. This is showing that a sun tunnel, even though it's triple glazed, it's a little bit colder, but it's not terrible. Everything's relative here. It's getting about 58 or 59 degrees when the room's at about 64 to 65. So it is cooler, but it gives you far more light than a window on the wall. Now this is a window in the floor. In my house, one of the additions has a gymnasium, and below it is the greenhouse. And I'm trying to bounce light into the back from the gymnasium that's also catching a lot of light. And so I have a window on the floor. And you see a fan that goes around down there, actually blocking the banana tree, but the aloe vera is around the side. Okay, now doors for energy loss. You can have conduction, just like a window, convection through leaks and gaskets and warm weather stripping, convection around the door frame from bad install, from having, if you just leave it open, you have convection. And if it's got a pane of glass in it, you can have radiation going in or out, either solar or black body, giving you or taking away heat. So airlock entry is better than storm doors because they tighten up the home, because you can close one and then open the next. I talked about these a little bit before. And they give you spaces that are 3 season. We're in a airlock on my house right now, and this is December, and it's snowing a little bit outside. Now, airlocks in corporate buildings. Here you see the outer wall, the inner. You go through a lot of these things in the day if you're out and about. On a COVID day, you may not. Okay, so my front airlock, I had a storm door, and I had a portico. Well, I built up with polyiso, put on a door, and put bamboo on there, and got rid of that. And I had that, and that really warmed up the north side of my house. This is the front door on the north side of my house. It didn't make it quite as warm as I'd like it, so still I did lose some heat out of 2 layers of doors in a 5x5 room. So, hey, if 1 is good, 2 is better. So I made another outer front airlock and vestibule. And this looks like that. And some neighbors object, but most think it's not a bad idea. And so that's here. So now we're going to do a little walk from the south, and we're going to see right here. This is living room. This is the conference room we're in right now, and this is the airlock, and that's an airlock. We're going to go out, and we're just going to do a thermal. So looking at is in the conference room. Actually, I'm going to go back. This is looking at the original outside door. So it's 71 in the dining room, living room, and the door has its cool spots. So then we're going to go through that and be in the conference room we're in now. And looking at the other airlock, and we're down to 64 in the room and down to 59 on cold places. And then opening the door here, and you see we get down to 39 on that outer door when you open it all up, and it's 26 degrees outside. So we're getting down to 35 at the bottom of the outer door, and it's 26 outside. Okay. Some snow just fell off the roof. I hope. So now we're going to talk about appliances and heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. So there's a lot of topics here we'll go through. So refrigeration is the first one, and that fits under food preservation. Historically, they did drying, salting, pickling, smoking, curing, and then root cellars and ice boxes. When I was a kid, we actually had a wooden box insulated, and the iceman came and put a block of ice in. That was an ice box. And then we got sophisticated, and we got a refrigerator, and then there's freezers. On refrigerators, if you're buying one, study the specifications. And this says that this 25.5 cubic foot refrigerator freezer with water through the door has a $78 on a $73 to $99, and it'll use that much. You know, there's lots of variations on refrigerators, but you want to be kind of low. I did not buy this. This was at the store. I was just running around Lowe's taking pictures. So refrigerators are heat pumps. So what do? They move energy out of the box, and they use less energy moving it out than they moved. So they're productive in getting it out of the box. There's other heat pumps, some that go one way and some that can move it out or move it in. Now, clothes dryers, historic evolution, hot rock, a branch, a bush beside the stream, over furniture inside the home, or inside a car on a sunny day, or a gas clothes dryer. Now, a gas clothes dryer, it puts CO2 in the air, and it has to be vented to the outside, because if it wasn't vented, the CO2 would go into the house, and you get a CO2 buildup. And it'd get a CO buildup also, because there's a little bit of byproducts that are carbon monoxide. So, whereas an electric clothes dryer doesn't need to be, but it usually is. But the gas clothes dryer by code has to be vented. And then an indoor clothesline in the kitchen, or an outdoor clothesline in the summer, or a walk-in solar clothes dryer. And that's what I have here, which is basically two 20-foot clotheslines just between this conference room and the outside in the south. Quad glass and then double glass, and it's down the middle. And it looks like that with some sheets on it. And so that gets rid of a gas clothes dryer, which I used to have. Okay, water heating options. Lots of categories. You have an electric tank, a heat pump water heater, an electric added to solar thermal. These are two solar. Problem with solar thermal, you need backup. And the backup can be the heat pump like that, or it can be electric like that. And so you have to pay for two systems. So the initial capital cost is high on those. The bottom line, well, here's gas at the bare minimum inefficient one at 60%, or natural gas at 80%. And then this is the instant heat. And the problem with those, they're expensive, and you get a potential demand charge because they're peaky, and depending on how things are structured. So of all of these, the heat pump is the cheapest on a monthly dollar. And it does not, if you have solar on your roof, it does not have a carbon footprint. So there it is. Here's what it looks like. And notice, estimated yearly cost, 114. Now let's compare that. Propane, 630. Electric, 555. A Renee, 175, unless you get hit by the demand charge. And then it goes dramatic. And then a small gas, not a 50 or 80, but a 35 gallon. And then a full-size gas is 244. And that's a good one. So we come back again. Heat pump water heater is cheap in operations and therefore in carbon footprint. Cooking. Okay, a lot of historic stuff. But gas stove and oven, well, you get CO2 emissions and a little bit of CO emissions from the combustion. And then electric stove top, you get CO2 emissions, but not inside the house. They're at Excel when they're generating the power. And then an induction electric stove top on a convection oven, and if you have solar panels, there's no emissions. And a lot of people say they don't want electric stoves, but this is faster on and off, which gets rid of the dislike of electric. I mean, when you turn this off, it's off. It's inducing a current and heat from the element below to the ferrous pan. It has to be iron. You can't use aluminum. So it's real good with iron pots, steel pots. You test your pots with a magnet. Keep a magnet right on the side of the refrigerator. And if you have a pan, you go, oh, yep, that'll work. Okay, sun oven. This works good on a sunny day. And it gives you a nice thing to be sitting on the driveway and people wonder what the heck you're doing. And then a sun stove, a little bit different. It's coming up and heating the bottom. Instead of an oven heating the surrounds, it's right on the bottom. And here's the induction stove. And right there it says induction that I blew up right there. And so here's my cast iron pots. Okay, space heating. The historic view. Ancient is the sun or fire in the teepee or igloo or mud hut. Now, in Greece, in Rome, and in Navajo country, they had solar access laws. Thou shalt not shade thy neighbor. We are not so civilized as those people. And so there's been efforts to get that kind of civilization back. Now, farms had woodlots for fireplaces, coal furnaces, and chimney sweeps, and then fuel oil and natural gas. And then we got fully carbonized, as are our skies. In the U.S., if you look at cold, very cold, mixed humid, hot humid, mixed dry, marine, and you look, mini splits are a very small part of most of these. But, especially in the cold, very cold, but they didn't used to be highly efficient. Now they're highly efficient. So with a well-insulated house, you can use a mini split. And what that is a refrigerator that'll run forward and backwards, and the box is your house. So we don't have much in Colorado right now, but people are going that way because they are getting very, very efficient. Now, this is a house up on Lookout Mountain. It's got 2 wood burners. And then this is 2 condensing and non-condensing furnaces. So these are about 80%, and these are 95 to 98. And this is saying the condensing label is 95.5% for the model's efficiency. So it's right near the top of that range. 97% efficient gas boiler for baseboard heat. Pipe distribution all over the house. This is a mini split. So you've got an outside unit, and you've got, outside unit, inside unit, and thermostat. So why heat pumps? Because they are moving heat, not creating heat. They are much more efficient than gas furnaces. So the outside unit, and this is one that has a 1 ton or 12,000 BTU rating on the cooling, and a 16,000 BTU or 1 1/3 ton rating on the heating. And that's pretty good. Here's its label. Of the range at the time that the energy guides were put together, 14 to 30.5, it's 29.3, so it's right at the top. And on the heating, that's cooling. On the heating, the HSPF from 8.2 to 13.5 is there. So it exceeded the standard rating when it was done. Now, to do my basement, I decided I'd put another one right next to it. And they got better in the meantime. And so that's a carrier. And notice, on a 14 to 30, this is a 42. A 42, that means it uses 1/3 as much electricity on cooling as some mini splits. So you don't just go out and say, I want to buy a mini split. You say, I want to get one with a SEER value of 42. And this is the only one, but it's new and it's good. And then on heating, it has, out of a top of 13, it's 15, so it's off the top on both. So here you're getting almost twice the heating value. It'll take and pull heat out of outside air that's at minus 22 degrees. It'll pull heat out productively and put that heat in because it's moving heat in. Just like a refrigerator is moving heat out, this heat pump is moving it in, unless you turn it around in summer, and then it's moving heat out. Specs matter. I just want to emphasize, specs matter. If you just go out and buy something, it can be 3 times less efficient. So you really want to check the. And the thing is, the price of these is not enough more to matter when you consider the installation cost, because that dominates the price. So you don't, if you cut, you're going to, on price, that little bit of savings, you lose a lot. So these are the words to use. I try to be strong on this. Use these words. Specifications matter. 9,000 BTU, 42 SEER, 15 HSPF, wall-mounted, carrier mini-split, Infinity Series, single-zone heat pump. Now, you can get multi-zone heat pumps, and they will have 1 outside compressor, and they'll have 2 or 3 inside heads to give distribution. And they will be at the very low end on efficiency. And if one fails, you're dead in the water. You're cold. So if you get these smaller, and they would be bigger than a 9,000 BTU, a 3/4 ton, you get the smaller ones that are all super efficient, it'll cost you maybe a little bit, but not much more to have those 2 or 3 in different ends of the house. Okay, other heating options. Thermal, solar water, and storage. That's strange. But anyway, some people have a lot of thermal stuff, and then they have a 10,000 gallon tank in the house that's insulated. And in the summer, they're storing up all of the solar energy into it. And quite often, they're running a little bit low come late February, and they're burning a lot more wood in their backup fireplace or in their electric adjunct heaters. And then a straight electric radiant with a cal rod is 100% efficient of taking that electricity. But the thing is, the heat pumps can be 350% efficient. So 100% efficient is not the best you can do. It's kind of low. Okay, air quality. I'm going to talk about COVID-19 air quality in your house. This is kind of new because COVID-19 is kind of new. So there's a new item from a company called big ass fans. Now, if you've been to Costco, and most people around here have, there's that big 24-foot fan in the ceiling. That's a big ass fan. They make smaller big ass fans too. And so they do UV sanitizing of the air. So this, and you see a little blue halo, they got UV light, And if you have it in the direction to pull air up, to push air down, it's taking this sanitized air, going like that, and it's supposed to be 99.x% cleaning by the UV of COVID. This company is really leading on efficiency of the fan motion and on putting in things like this. So I'm going to get one actually for my kitchen because I love that. Now, air quality part 2. And this is what everybody thinks about air quality. I just wanted to get COVID in there since it's timely. Okay, energy recovery ventilation or heat recovery ventilation. Solution to the problem of stale air is ventilate. And that means stale air out and fresh air in. Okay? Like opening a window or a door, except you want to retain your energy investment in being comfortable. So stale air has the proper temperature. You do not want to throw away or waste that energy investment. So there's heat recovery and energy recovery. Good in the eastern U.S., they move the moisture out. They don't save it. Whereas energy recovery takes the moisture and the heat and brings it around. They do that by having a fiber energy exchanger. And let me get to that. So here's the Wikipedia version, but this is actually one of the media pads, 6 little pie pieces in there. So the air goes out and leaves heat or cool in it, and the new air comes in and takes the heat or cool, but it also leaves moisture and it picks the moisture up. There's 6 of these pies in there. So where do you get the air from? Up high, outside, where it's clean, and you have, there's a stale air. So there, you want to get it out of your bathrooms or your kitchen, and you want to get the place that you want to normally use either air freshener or a vent fan. Because this is a vent fan. It's constantly running to move stuff out. And so a little unit like that or that or that in the bathrooms. And then fresh air, outside up high, away from exhaust, and screened off and with flow damper. So here up high, it's got a screen and it's got a back flow damper. And then the up high comes down. The up high comes down and goes in. The dirty stuff comes out, and inside is 3 dirty pipes. And they all come around and go through there to go out. And clean pipe comes in, and then it goes over to an extended plenum where the furnace was. What does this do for you? Well, if you have a constantly running CO2 meter, which is not a bad idea, you see that that's not, the outside is about 415 to 420 now. Used to be 280 150 years ago. And so you got your CO2 level. They also generally tell you your relative humidity and temperature. And the VOCs, they're down. This is 13.3 parts per million. That's very low, so you're in the green. And radon is 1.2. I also have in the house a radon move, but I figure I'm going to have all my air quality things on the same spot on the kitchen counter. And air particulates. So there's almost nothing in the relevant sizes. So the air quality is way over here. It's extremely good. So now we get to renewables. Okay. A lot of people for a lot of years have been looking down at the earth and say, there must be a source of energy down there. And they've come up with lots of science of how to find out if there's something down there they could burn. One way or another. Was it solid burnable? Is it peat moss? Is it coal? Is it oil? Is it gas? But they were getting a sunburn on the back of the head while they were doing that. So you need to look up, you fool. So, I mean, people go to extreme. Now, there's good and there's maybe overkill on this. So here you got solar hot water panels. You got solar PV panels. You got passive solar without any shading. You got a little bit of overhang on some of that passive solar. And you got passive solar without any shading. So there's an awful lot of, and here you've got passive solar on this and on that. But not on that. In the middle of summer, that's bearing in, and that's bearing in. And so the shades are down, and then this. You've got passive solar, and you got to have shades and a little bit of overhang, but it can. Whereas the shading, the overhang, is good for those. And talking to people in one of these houses, they said, "Oh God, they get way too hot, and they can't really. They don't have a venting to dump it out the top. Is the problem." So, and again, look at all this. Boom. So all shaded, and that's the good natural shading. But it can be excessive. So in doing mine, I did some weird things. Well, the room we're in now has a white roof, and it's got an overhang. So in the summer, I get almost no sun. Then I built this, and I get it there and there, even in the summer, a little bit reduced there. But in the summer, and I actually pull a lot of that and trunk it through ductwork to the north end of the house. But here's what that looks like. I have vent there, vent there, vent there, and a vent around there. And I can open these. And this has a wall, a see-through wall on the outside and the next. So with these open, I can bypass all the heat and go out through those. So I can collect heat or I can bypass heat. And the collected heat I ship north. This is the south side. So now I just had to throw this in because it's something I newly saw. I don't know if you have ever seen a solar cow, but there's a PV panel in it. Here's the cow's mouth, and African schools, so the kids have light to study at night, have these battery systems and flashlights, and they put them in the morning. When they go home, they get them out, and they have the flashlight at home. So they, I mean, I just love this. It's just neat as can. So it's a Guernsey. I think that's what the black and whites are, is Guernseys. Okay, I'm going to go back to a little bit of moral words. Eldridge Cleaver, I said it before, you either have to be part of the solution or part of the problem. You'll be. George Bernard Shaw, people who say it cannot be done should not interrupt those that are doing it. Nelson Mandela, you can never have an impact on society if you've not changed yourself. That means individual action so that the advocacy is credible. Paul Hawken, do what needs to be done. Do not check to see if it was impossible until you are done. Then you can check to see if it was impossible. But you'll be done. Albert Schweitzer, example is not the main thing influencing others. It's the only thing. And Dr. Martin Luther King, somewhere we must make it clear that we are concerned about the survival of the world. What we need is a culture of personal action on climate and other civil rights. Climate is a civil right, and others. Individually, we are but one drop, but together we can create an ocean. Okay, I've given you these, and then we went through kind of those. And I'm going to say, the former governor of Texas, her daughter is the head of the Women's Health Organization, famous, and I'm blocking on the words, but she said, you have to find the courage to talk to people you do not know and tell them things that they don't want to hear. But you have to done your work first. And then this guy's an advocate, and I think he's done a lot of personal work before he became an advocate. I was lucky enough to be at a thing that he is at, and my good friend Martin, who's also the videographer today, shot that picture without me knowing and then gave it to me. Because being next to Bill, he started 350.org. So now, I'm going to quickly talk about what people talk about to me usually after a talk. They ask, what is your ROI? Like, this is a business, and you got to have a return on investment. If you don't have a return on investment, you shouldn't be doing this stupid stuff. Okay? Well, so I give the financials, but the bottom line is, I got grandkids. There's no other ROI. But it's good ROI anyway, financially, if you are a cheap dude like me. So my cost, this is before I did the 14th added room. This is 13. And it was 1,300 square foot, including the space we're in now. And it was 47,500, which was $36 per square foot. That's not bad. I had a neighbor that I paid to help for a lot of it. He was a good carpenter, and he had days when his wife had a professional job, and he had to get the kids on the bus and get the kids off the bus, and he worked in between, and highly competent. Other costs over 17 years. So altogether, 69,000 over 17 years. So that's about 4,000 a year.
Actually, would you mind going back to that slide with the insulation cost? I think that's interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I've done this over a period of 17 years, and prices change. So, insulation. I did the attic, and I was up there doing it myself once, doing it myself again, adding more, which got harder because I should have done more the first time. But anyway, I did $5,800 when I finally had a guy come out and do the ridge. And I was taking off the ridge vents, and he was blowing it in, and I was putting them back on with him. And that was Adam from Best Way up in Lafayette. And then I had basement walls done by a different contractor before I found Adam, and they blew in fiberglass between the inner fake wall and the outer wall because it had already been finished down there. And then inside main floor, trying to remember what that was, sorry. But the garage ceiling, I went up and I did bales up there to get it up to 38. And then outside, east side, I did 1,800. And that was the building it all out that you saw. And then 7 big sun tunnels. There's 12-inch, there's 16-inch, and there's 22-inch. There's 10, 12, and 22. I'm going to try one more time. There's 10, 14, and 22. Why are there 10? Because sometimes your rafters are on 12, so they have to fit between. Why are there 14? Because sometimes your rafters are on 16, like studs in a wall. You have to fit between. Why are there 22? Because sometimes you got 24, and they have to fit in between. So, 7, big. If you put in a 10, you're going to be sorry. You're not getting much light. A 14 gives you basically twice the light, 1.96 times the light. And a 22 gives you almost 5 times light, 4.84 times. So go big, except in a bathroom you don't need 22, But in a living room, in a family room, do 22. In a kitchen, do 22. In a bathroom, do 14. Never do 10. That's why I say big. Heat pump water heater, 1,800. An ERV, the labor separate. I did not install the energy recovery ventilator. I bought it separate and had a guy install it. And then mini split heat pump, 3,500. Now this was, I've since done another, so this is not totally up to date because I've had another couple years in the game. And then my PV, I'm not including that. It was at prices way back when. Prices are actually better now, even though the rebates are less. So the total, and that's to get beyond net zero, that's plus PV. And to getting comfort beyond, getting 1,300 square feet, now it's 1,400 with the latest room. Comfort beyond belief, and transport fuel, and home fuel saved, and a lot of food. I can go down right now and pick mandarin oranges and navel oranges and kumquats on the trees. They're not big trees, it's not big crops. And I do my duty to my grandchildren, country, and nature using what the sun god provides. lots of different gods around. Now, 4,000 a year. What could I have used 4,000 a year for? Well, you know, if I got 2 packs of cigarettes a day, it'd be 4,000. If I had 1 cocktail at a decent bar a day in LA, it'd be 4,300. If I did a combination, a trifecta, of 2 Starbucks ground lattes and a 7-day Vail lift ticket, but I slept in the back of the car, and a 7-day tour pack in Vegas, that would add up to be $4,000. So any one of these things, by doing it the cheap way I do it, would do that. So I didn't need to give up all that, but I gave it all up. So do you people asking about ROI, and do you see people asking about ROI on smoking or drinking or playing golf or going to Vegas? Do they ask about your ROI? Why not? If they're going to ask me about my ROI on doing what's right and good for the kids and good for the climate and good for everything, why don't they ask all these others? So, since I don't use tobacco, caffeine, alcohol, drugs, or ski, gamble, or play golf, some of these are worse sins than others, but I only needed one of these for doing all the upgrades. The other two, 68, 69 grand together, got me a nice car with money left over. And a car that will drive itself and has lifetime supercharging and goes 155 miles per hour and goes 0 to 60 in 4.2. You know? Ooh. So now I'm just going to talk about some other. You can be on Santa's naughty list. We're back to Santa. You can be on Santa's naughty list if you have fossil fuel heated outdoor spas, fossil fuel heated swimming pools, and other American keep up with the Joneses climate killing boondoggles. Sorry if I've offended anybody, but not so sorry. Okay, as well as gas, all-terrain vehicles, jet skis, snowmobiles. These are why America is the per capita carbon king and on Santa's naughty list. By the way, right down by the Colorado Conference Center, Convention Center, there is this at an outdoor restaurant. And they keep that running through the winter. And that's just burning methane, putting out CO2. And, you know, nobody there. I mean, what kind of image? A lot of people say, oh, isn't that nice? No, that's not nice. It is not nice. Santa says, ho, no, 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 ho. Okay, so what will keep you off of Santa's naughty list? Be like the Danish. Okay, here's the U.S. and there's Denmark. They've got as cold a climate as we have. Yeah, they're doing a lot better. Or get better than the Danish. I mean, the good guys are down to nothing. This is the bad guys. And remember, only you can prevent polar melting and loss of my Santa's, I Play Santa workshop. So, thank you, and we'll talk a little bit now about what activities are done and what numbers you got when you did your carbon footprint, if you did it. And actually, my assignment for you going forward is go through the tier 0, 0.5, okay, and then start working through tier 1 with LED light bulbs, and then think about your attic, sealing it and insulating up to a very high level. I did a middle high and then a higher and then a highest. It's better to do it all at once instead of do it in stages. Thank you.